He's a new teacher who's got an obsession with the male students. That is like, hey, investigate me. Something's going on. Who is this dude asking questions to my son?
When was the last time you saw your father? Is anyone at home now?
Does he make your mother happy? Do you hear screaming?
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love when growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, man, why do they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I'm one of your three co-hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina, Lions.
I'm the party pooper.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out a race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and True Detective. That being said, Big D, we are booked solid. Still don't understand how or why. We have commissions lined up from now until the end of the year.
Almost. We're into December, and we just got another one today. So we don't mean to laugh at it because it is great. Because every time we add a TV series, we add any feed, the costs just multiply.
Right.
So yes, we're on a good run here of commissions, but this just helps us keep the lights on. It helps us pay. Like I just renewed the websites, and all that stuff costs a couple $100 every time you try to do something. So we do appreciate the commissions. And I guess the summer commission special now rolls into December. Gene, you're in marketing. Do you think maybe our price point is wrong on these commissions?
No, I think the price point is perfect because we were doing them for free for like the first 100. So if we can get Raj to get on board and stop poo-pooing the amazing value that we're offering the listenership. I was just thinking about it the other day. I was like thinking about my favorite podcast. And if they were like, hey, Gene, for $100, we'll do a podcast about any topic you want, to be like, fuck yeah, I'm on board. This is great entertainment, perfect for weddings, anniversaries, mitzvahs, birthdays. Maybe if your favorite sports team wins a championship, buy yourself a movie commission. They're great.
So we're locked in on commissions now through the end of the year. Big D, what is the commission we're doing this episode?
So one of our longtime listeners, Stephanie, wrote in, and she couldn't decide between 6 films. So she was debating between Kindergarten Cop, Long Kiss Goodnight, Splash, Muppets Christmas Carol, Demolition Man, which we already did. That shows you how far back this commission was sent in, and The Mask. And she settled upon the iconic 1990 Arnold Schwarzenegger attempted comedy classic, Kindergarten Cop.
Now, one of the things we always ask when people commission is to write a letter in giving their background into why they commissioned such a movie, why they sent 3 idiots with microphones $100. Gene, Kindergarten Cop and Stephanie is no different. She did send in an email alongside her donation.
She did, and I'm going to attempt to read it despite being an idiot. She says, hey, Shatters, I've been wanting to commission a review for some time now to show my appreciation for all the podcasts. A friend at work introduced your podcast to me some time ago, and I haven't looked back. I've listened to everything but American Gods, as I haven't watched it yet. Your podcasts not only greatly enhance my TV watching, Game of Thrones, Westworld, and True Detective, best we all forget about Taboo, they always make me smile and make me feel better. I listen to all the movie reviews, whether I've watched the films or not. You've helped me get through some tough times with anxiety and depression, as well as being a soundtrack to good times. I've gone back and forth on which is the right one. Some of them you've done now. I settled on Kindergarten Cop because it's one of those films that if it's on TV, you'll sit down and watch it wherever it's at. After Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, I think it's one of Arnie's best. Controversial, perhaps? There are so many great moments, funny and touching. Some of it doesn't really stand up, but I don't particularly care. I'd also love to know what you think and laugh along with you. The Arnie Shat reviews have been great. I hope this one doesn't spoil the run. Thanks, Steph.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for your donation. And if you've never listened to the podcast before, you don't have to watch Kindergarten Cop because we're going to go through all the main plot points. But it does enhance the viewing if you stop the podcast, watch it, and then come back and listen to it because we're going to spoil the heck out of it. That being said, Kindergarten Cop is a 1990 American comedy drama film directed by Ivan Reitman. Arnold Schwarzenegger stars as John Kimble, a tough police detective working undercover as a kindergarten teacher to apprehend drug dealer Cullen Crisp, played by Richard Tyson, before he can get to his ex-wife and son. Pamela Reed plays his partner Phoebe O'Hara, and Penelope Ann Miller plays Joyce, the teacher who becomes his love interest. The film was released in the United States on December 21st, 1990, and went on to make $85 million at the box office. Alongside the box office receipts, Arnold Schwarzenegger did win the Blimp Award for Favorite Movie Actor as part of the Kids' Choice Awards in 1991. We always ask the question before we dive in, where were you? What are your memories of this movie? We'll start with you, Big D.
So I was a high school senior at this point, and I loved Arnold's action movies. I think it was just such a shock that he was trying to do comedy, and he hadn't quite gotten it figured out yet. So like this and Twins, which was I think 2 years before this, I just didn't seem interested. And then also a couple years before my senior year, I'd worked at a day camp. So I had 25 5-year-old kids. So maybe this was too close to home. It reminded me of my job, but I have absolutely no memory of watching this, but I know I have. It just kind of got washed away by the years.
What about you, Gene? Do you remember watching Kindergarten Cop?
Too many times. I feel like Kindergarten Cop was in everyone's VHS library when we were growing up, so I couldn't escape it anytime I went to a friend's house. This movie was everywhere in my childhood, and although the premise is silly, seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger outside of his typical roles had a special, predictable magic for me as a kid. And it's kind of like, Big D was saying, this is really like the tip of the iceberg when it came to Schwarzenegger doing comedies. And I think that he did sort of develop as a comedic actor, but this was kind of like the early stages. And I remember as a kid thinking this was funny as shit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. My parents didn't really take me to a lot of movies as a child. So I really only remember going with them like a handful, like Jurassic Park. I think I saw Twins with my mom and my stepfather. I also went with them to see Kindergarten Cop. And I remember this being a fun family film. I remember this being family friendly and, parents taking their kids. But upon second viewing, I don't know if I was a parent, I would ever take my kid to see this movie. This movie, and we're going to dive into it, has some pretty jarring plot points that may not be suitable for children, especially kindergarten kids.
Yeah, Raj, I think the advertising campaign, they portrayed this as a family film, something you'd want to go take the kids. It was the kindergartners running around, Arnold screaming at them to get back in line. It looked funny. They seem to have left out the murder, the arson, the abduction, the spousal and children's being abused. I think that would have given a more accurate, feel for the movie, but then maybe your parents wouldn't have taken you.
That's probably right. Well, with that being said, Big D, play that trailer.
Now, more than ever, to be a teacher requires patience, kindness, and understanding. Fortunately, Astoria Elementary has just hired such an individual. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Kindergarten Cop.
Kindergarten is like the ocean. You don't want to turn your back on it.
Don't worry, everything is under control.
He's an undercover detective.
I assume you have some teaching experience.
They wouldn't have sent me otherwise.
Assigned to find a mother and son.
Did Danny ever say what Crisp's wife looked like?
Before a killer does.
First, I would like to just get to know you.
A male kindergarten teacher. That's unusual.
He's been trained to shoot.
What made you become a kindergarten teacher?
He's been trained to fight. But there are some things
You mean you eat other people's lunches? Stop it!
he's never been trained to handle.
They're walking all over me.
Listen, Kimble, you gotta handle this like any other police situation.
You're going to be my deputy trainees. You're not gonna have your mommies run behind you anymore and wipe your little tushes. You're mine now.
I'm not a policeman. I'm a princess.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You hit the kid, I hit you.
Wow.
In an Ivan Reitman film.
Are you married, Mr. Kimble?
No, I'm not.
He's not married, Mom!
Welcome to Astoria, the single-parent capital of America.
You got a little mustache.
Must be from the milk.
Kindergarten Cop.
Detective John Kimble arrests drug kingpin Cullen Crisp for murder. Partnered with former teacher-turned-detective Phoebe O'Hara, Kimble goes undercover to find Cullen's ex-wife Rachel and offer her immunity in exchange for testifying against Crisp in court. To this end, O'Hara must act as a substitute teacher in Rachel's son Cullen Jr.'s kindergarten class at Astoria Elementary School in Oregon. When O'Hara gets a terrible case of the stomach flu, Kimble takes her place.
So, guys, this might be the first negative thing I've ever said about a Schwarzenegger movie on this podcast. But the opening of this movie just doesn't work. Like, I get what they're going for. You got Schwarzenegger. He's looking pretty haggard. He's got like those weird, like Ozzy Osbourne sunglasses and a duster on at the mall. He's just trying to look tough. But there's so much fucking violence at the beginning. But then they're also trying to like neuter that violence. So like Schwarzenegger is throwing dudes around. He's blasting away with a shotgun. His answer to everything is just like punch a guy, throw a guy, you know, shoot something. But also nobody dies or gets seriously hurt by him. Like it's kind of the problem that Marvel movies had really in the early days. I understand that they're going for a children's comedy, but you just can't mix the two in these ratios. It's a really fucked up recipe because it's not funny, but it's also not cool. And I was thinking, like, where does this work? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, compare this to Jingle All the Way, where like Arnold was goofy, but he wasn't deadly. Or you could look at it the other way around, like Last Action Hero, where Arnold was allowed to fuck shit up, but they didn't treat it with kid gloves. You know, you got to let him go one way or another. He can't be caught in this weird limbo.
Yeah, and actually, that's the big controversy of this film is that the violence and language. And by the way, not only is there violence, but there's shithead, what the fuck, and asshole in the first 3 minutes. On top of the fact that like there's prostitutes and pimps, this all prompted a PG-13 rating, which according to Arnold cost the movie $25 million. They were projecting similar return as Twins, which raised $110 million. This one obviously only grossed $85 million. But again, Kindergarten Cop, I guarantee you 90% of the audience who remembers this movie fondly does not remember that Arnold Schwarzenegger confronts some drug dealers outside of a LA drug den, then goes in and sit next to the key witness to like force her into cooperation.
Yeah, Kimble is he's a loose cannon. I couldn't tell if he was a dirty cop or he was just out of control. He handcuffs a witness to a dead body,
right,
who then contaminates the crime scene as she's dragging her boyfriend or the guy she hardly knew around. Okay, he pulls a shotgun on that group of people outside and then threatens the dude to watch his car or he'll shoot him. Then he shoots up the flop house. He throws Crisp around the police station. He intimidates a witness. Okay, he goes and finds the drug addict. I forget what her name is. She doesn't want to testify because she knows Crisp will kill her. He blackmails her, essentially threatens her that I will be your shadow. I will be everywhere with you if you don't testify. I think that Kimble got her killed.
No, absolutely got her killed. And in fact, talk about other things you shouldn't show children. They kill her with a hot load. Like they give her a freaking dose to fucking kill her. Like, I mean, I guess it's a good lesson for kids to know that's possible. Another great lesson for kids today is a historical lesson on how fucking ugly the 90s were. The King Bee has said it before. Like the 90s were the ugliest period in American style. Arnold looks like some sort of homeless steampunk cosplay. Cullen Crisp looked like he wants to show you a dick in a box. Like the mall scenes are a visual headache. There's checkers and swirls and all sorts of colors. Something really awful happened to style between the 80s and the late 90s. And this movie is a portrait of that horrible era.
You want to talk about horrible? Arnold's facial hair. We've seen Arnold grow facial hair. He's done it before. In Maggie, I think it was like that zombie movie he did recently. He had an actual beard.
It looked good.
For some reason in here, this fake beard in HD, it looked like glued on pubic hair.
No, it looked like Team America when he had the pubic hair beard.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that.
That's exactly.
It looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be a werewolf, and then that was the amount of budget they had for costuming, where they're like, all right, you're in between human werewolf, go with it.
But it was uncomfortable. I mean, they had him, his hair was teased up. It was some weird color. Maybe it's because it's HD. In normal resolution, maybe this wouldn't have bothered me, but it just made me feel creeped out. I didn't want him near me. He seemed like a real-life Jack Slater from Last Action Hero, except here he was playing it seriously.
I think that was the first time that we actually saw Arnold Schwarzenegger in a beard. And then when he gets to Maggie, to your point, it really truly is a good, authentic beard. But I think in this movie, you first uncover that Arnold Schwarzenegger is like an undercover ginger. Like, he is a redhead. That beard is red. His hair in the sunlight later on in the movie when they're having field day out with all the kindergartners and all the elementary school kids, that hair is a golden red. Also, you talk about bad 90s. Why does every bad 90s villain have to have a shitty Steven Seagal ponytail and look like a bloated Val Kilmer? That's who Richard Tyson is. There's a subreddit on Reddit called Walmart Celebrities. Richard Tyson is the Walmart Val Kilmer.
No, I completely disagree. Have you seen 3 O'Clock High?
No.
He is the bully in 3 O'Clock High who is traumatizing the entire school. As a kid, he was my vision of tough guy in high school. Go back and watch it. He might be bloated Val Kilmer now, but back in the time, he was a good-looking dude. He was a badass.
Hey, pro tip, if you're writing a movie and then casting, doing props and costumes for a drug kingpin, give him more than one fucking outfit. He's a drug kingpin. He should have like lots of outfits, many options. He's at the mall all the time. He's getting manicures with his mom. He should be looking dapper. He wears the same fucking outfit the entire movie. But I don't want to shit on this movie too much. And there are some highlights to it. And for me, the best thing about Kindergarten Cop, all the memories came back as soon as you saw Kimble announced to this mall security, "I'm a cop, you idiot." And I was like, oh yeah. Do you guys remember when the Arnold Schwarzenegger soundboards became a thing?
Yes.
Like where on the internet, there, several websites do it. You have like a Kindergarten Cop and a Jingle All the Way and some just general Arnold soundboards, and people would call and do prank calls using the Arnold ones. Well, this movie is the perfect prank call soundboard because you got your, "Who's your daddy and what does he do? I'm a cop, you idiot. Stop it. Stop whining." It's brilliant, man.
What's crazy is we don't typically share notes. We don't see notes until almost an hour before we record. And then we kind of organize them based upon, the flow of the podcast. Well, it's funny you bring that up because Big D can attest to this. I literally sent him links to videos of these Arnold prank calls without even knowing that this is something that you remember as well. I was a big fan of Howard Stern, and he would play these all the time and in the older shows. And it's like you, Gene, watching The Cable Guy, and you're like, oh yeah, that's where that line's from. Oh yeah, I get it. This movie is really more known in terms of pop culture lore for those snippets of dialogue that have been lifted and put into the lexicon, into the ether, into the zeitgeist of American culture. And it was nice to actually see the actual context of where that is, because they'd be calling up like hotel or hotel receptionists and be like, "Hello, I can't do the Arnold voice. Big D can do the Arnold voice, but it's like, I'm a detective. Who is your father?"
Yeah, but you always remember the kids' lines. The
Yeah.
kids are funny. You think this is going to be great. I don't remember the overdosed prostitute drug addict or the arson. All that. I don't remember that.
Well, not only that, but like detective work before social media must have been exhausting. It's why the 48 hours rule came up, because after 48 hours, if no one's called in, the person's dead. Sorry, we're not finding them again. Before, you could just simply put in a name and find 2 to 3 degrees of separation and discover anything about anyone. You were reliant upon old yearbook photos, old quotes in those yearbooks. I don't know how any murder ever got solved before 2006.
Yeah, and for that matter, I don't know how drug kingpins ever found their ex-wives who ran away with their children before social media. That also must have been difficult because, Cullen's having a hard-ass time. Now he could have just looked on Facebook and been like, oh, shit, she's in Oregon.
Well, the suspicious school principal, Mrs. Schlowski, is convinced that Kimble will not last long before quitting. Overwhelmed at first, he quickly adapts to his new status despite not having any formal teaching experience. With the use of his pet ferret as a class mascot, positive reinforcement, his police training as a model for structure in class, and his experience as a father, he becomes a much admired and cherished figure to the students.
Okay, so Gene, you've been out to Portland quite a bit with your moped group.
Hate it.
This can't be a public school in Portland. This fucking shit is too nice. Every classroom's got a piano. There's like a second floor, like play area for the kids. This looks like a schoolroom that you'd have twice the amount of kids in. Is this just because, it's kind of hipster out in Portland? Oh, let's set up the classroom in an organic flow. It just doesn't seem real. This can't be a public school.
Well, actually, it's not Portland. It's Astoria. Astoria is in fact, the oldest city in Oregon.
Okay, you get my point.
Well, listen,
is this a public school in Astoria?
Spoiler alert, and Gene can attest to this. Portland is not Oregon. Oregon is vastly different than Portland. Portland is like the Austin of Oregon. A lot of Oregon is not the liberal bastion that you think Portland is. I mean, just look at all the alt-right rallies that are hosted in Portland.
I mean, think about where schools get their funding, right? It's all property taxes locally. So if you look at Astoria, it's actually like basically in Washington State. It's on the coast, small town. They got some money there. Look at the house that Joyce is staying in, right? Like This is not a poor community. This is actually probably an elite community, and so I believe it. Also, you got to remember this is 1990. So remember in the high school movies, everybody had those huge ass lockers, and like everybody was driving like cool cars. They didn't really want to deal with the reality of school in these movies. One thing they did in this movie that was interesting, though, like speaking of reality, is these documentary style interviews with the kids.
Right.
A lot of the comedy in this movie is like forced and terrible, particularly anything with Detective O'Hara. Like she was just not great. But the kid interviews were the most memorable part of the movie, and they continue to be the best part of it. They feel really genuine, and also they trigger that it's not a tumor at all line from Arnold. Like he is doing his best to keep this corn fest afloat. And the kids are doing their best as well. The kids are, as you said, Big D, the best actors in this movie.
Yeah, it's complete chaos. And the kids are realistic. As someone who has a child and has worked with children, if you don't get them under control and rein them in quickly, it does, like in the movie. They just steamroll out of control. And when these kids fucking destroy that classroom, and then you've got the one kid, Sylvester, looking up the girls' skirts, to which Kimble doesn't even try to stop him. Kimble can't control this kid tsunami. They're just overwhelming the entire classroom. And he finally yells at them, "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!" And one of them starts to cry. That just cascades down as they all start to cry. And then he runs like a little kid out in front of the school and screams, "Ah!" Kimble finally makes it back to the hotel room. And he just staggers there, sways, and collapses onto the bed. Any parent who has a kid knows exactly how he felt.
So I was in Mexico this weekend, and I texted Big D. Really, the only thing I could do in Mexico was like text. I couldn't get on any other internet or anything like that. So I text Big D. I'm like, "Hey, remind me what movie we're doing." He's like, "Kindergarten Cop." I'm like, "Oh, great. I get to hear some Arnold impressions. They make me smile so much." And I hate this movie. Spoiler, I don't like this movie at all, but I love it strictly because I get to hear Dick do nothing but Arnold impersonations. It warms my heart every time I hear it.
I'm glad I can make you smile.
Well, one thing that didn't make me smile is, again, in this political climate where Hollywood kind of like slurps its own, sniffs its own ass, if you will, and tries to be,
what?
It sniffs its own ass. Hollywood is self-serving in its own respects, where they're like, "Oh, we're all for liberal and progressive values," but then you watch a movie like this, and you just see rampant homophobia. There are multiple times where in this movie, it's like a complete 180 with what you see today. And it's almost shocking to see it, where there's lines that the parents who are saying, ooh, is that the new kindergarten teacher? Oh, he's a man. Oh, well, he must be gay. Or one of the parents saying, I'm worried about my son because he's playing with dolls. And then, Arnold says, well, actually, he was using the dolls to look up skirts. And the mom was like, oh, that's perfectly good male behavior. Or his father left us for another man. Oh, can you believe it? Like these were jokes. These were jokes in a family-friendly movie. I get. Yeah. All right.
I held out. I really held out. I held out as long as I could.
No, it really truly is just shocking how rampant it was back in the 80s and the 90s. Also, proper ferret ownership in the car. He just leaves his fucking parrot in his carry-on luggage, and which the parrot could die, or like in his hot car.
It's a ferret. It's not a parrot.
Parrot, whatever. I don't care. Don't leave your parrots or ferrets or dogs or babies in a locked car with the windows rolled up. It gets hot, even in Astoria, Oregon.
A better question is, how the fuck did he get that on the airplane? He didn't check it. He didn't have a carrier.
Nah, this is the 90s. You could bring a fucking horse on a plane. They didn't care.
No.
I want to get these motherfucking
you could bring
horses.
anything on the plane. You'd be like, I got my parrot, I got my ferret, I got my horse, I got my whole family back here, a knife. I don't know. Nobody cares.
It's probably like Roger's emotional support dogs.
They are certified by the state of Arizona.
They're not service animals.
They are. Kimble begins to enjoy his undercover role. He deals with a case of child abuse by assaulting and threatening the father, winning Miss Schlowski's favor. In observation of his teaching style, she assures him that even though she does not agree with his methods, she can see that he is in fact a good teacher. He becomes fond of fellow teacher Joyce Palmieri, his student Dominic's mother. She is estranged from her husband and will not speak of him, and tells Dominic that he lives in France. Conversing with the more gradually trusting Joyce, Kimble deduces that she is Rachel and that Dominic is Cullen Jr.
Okay, so I understand that you need the violence in the beginning because you're trying to establish that Kimble, he's a bad cop. He's tough. He doesn't take any shit. What happens if you put him in a classroom? I understand that's funny when you juxtapose those two situations, but you don't need to do that fucking 180-degree turn within like one scene. It's too abrupt. So it gets dark real quick. And you want to know how quick? One scene. We see Phoebe getting caught having sex with her chef fiance in the motel room.
Right.
The next scene is Zach's mom dropping him off at school with the bruises. And we delve into this whole child abuse, spouse abuse thing. How do we go from meeting a naked fiance, let's shake your hand, to guess what? He's being abused and beaten. It's a little weird.
Not only that, but then the Zach, the poor kid, is not only being abused by, in my opinion, the mom. I think the mom is abusing Zach and then blaming the stepfather or the father, but also the kids are abusing him. And Arnold just kind of glosses over this. He just kind of lets it go originally. But like, I can remember kids in class who were a little quiet, a little shy, didn't stay much. They were over in the corner. And I think to myself, maybe I should have tried to be more friends with them because they were probably getting beaten.
I mean, Zach's not exactly a friendly kid, though. He's like smashing trucks with each other, and he's like, leave me the hell alone. Maybe he's a dick to the other kids, and they're just caca-poo-pooing it back at him. I don't know. But the scene where Arnold goes out and kicks the shit out of Zach's dad, I wish I could say it was really kicking the shit out of him. I remember as a kid, like, I thought he beat the living shit out of this dude. He just like punches him like basically once, but they make a big deal about it. The principal comes in, she's like, oh, what did it feel like to like punch him? He's like, it felt great. And the last few times I had to kick somebody's ass, I thought that guy was a total creep. And I wonder if everybody makes that story up in their head. Like, oh, well, I had to kick that guy's ass. He was, the fucking worst. The last times I had to kick somebody's ass was, one of them was in New York City, where there's a woman dancing on the dance floor. She was like completely wasted and some dudes were like groping on her and she did not want it and they weren't stopping. And the other time was in a hallway in Arizona State where I saw somebody knock somebody over and just had to jump in. I didn't really get the whole story. I just kind of went to work. But Raj, I know you've never been in anything more than a push fight. Big D, did you ever have to beat somebody up as an act of vigilante justice?
I'm just happy. I feel like this is Batman Begins. We're getting the Gene Lyons origin story of the social justice warrior. We're seeing it be born here. No, sadly, most of the times when I would, and I scrapped quite a bit in college, and I graduated with staples in my head. I bounced. Most of the time, it wasn't somebody who deserved it. It was just a lot of alcohol and stupid shit that today I just walk away from. But there was no vigilante justice on my part, sadly.
What Gene leaves out is that he was wearing a mask and a cape at the time.
I mean, it was a goth club, so I mean, what am I going to do? But yeah, I mean, look, I should caveat here is I've lived a long and fruitful life. This was the last fight I got in was like legit fight was like 2005. So it's been a decade.
But the point you're making, Rogers, is true. He doesn't investigate. He doesn't know that that's even the father. He doesn't know that it could be the mom who's doing it. He just goes over and fucking hauls off and assaulted somebody.
Well, if I'm the principal, I'm less concerned with the fact that he's going up and he's beating up child abusers as the fact that he's an Austrian deploying autocratic military techniques with an emphasis on physical fitness. Where have we seen this before? These kids are goose-stepping by the end of the week. So, like, this is where I would be concerned if I was an administrator here at Astoria Elementary.
Yeah, I love that the principal doesn't go like, well, do they know any math? Can they read?
No.
Nope, but they can march around in a circle.
I'd also wonder if today this would lead to some investigation. He's a new beefy-looking, male teacher who's unnaturally got an obsession with the male students. Which of you kids don't have a dad? Oh, tell me where your daddy is. Like, that is like, hey, investigate me. Something's going on. Who is this dude asking questions to my son?
When was the last time you saw your father? Is anyone at home now?
Does he make your mother happy? Do you hear her screaming?
And I think I've got something that follows along the lines of that theory, which is Schwarzenegger also has very odd chemistry with women, in particular the female lead, Penelope Ann Miller. And I would connect it to her snaggletooth. And I know it's completely petty and superficial, but I was utterly distracted by Joyce's snaggletooth. And I think there was just a point in the late 90s where Americans said, like, enough. Everyone but Steve Buscemi needs to have perfect teeth, because in the 90s and 80s, like, people could have fucked up teeth and still be movie stars. But then now, like, everybody, Affleck had to have his teeth fixed. I think Penelope Ann Miller did too.
But I couldn't take my eyes off of it. In HD, that Arnold kiss, when Kimble finally goes in and they make out, it was uncomfortable. It was awkward. Arnold hadn't done many romantic roles, but I just cringed. I had to turn away from the screen.
He actually, Penelope, the actress who played Joyce in the movie, actually commented that she had to teach Arnold how to do an on-screen kiss. And that was their best shot. That's as good as it got. So yeah, he had, up until this point, I can't think of any movie where he actually had to do an on-screen kiss. This was something that he had. The first movie that he does it is in Kindergarten Cop. Could you imagine an Arnold Schwarzenegger sex scene? I think there's one in Eraser.
No, what was it? We did one where he's laying in bed. He's all sweaty. Fuck, what was it? Was it Last Action Hero?
Total Recall.
Oh, Total Recall. Yes, yes.
But you don't see him having sex.
No, you see the afterglow. What
would happen? What would Arnold Schwarzenegger sound like if he was having sex, Big D?
I don't even want to go there. I think I did it once before.
Come on. What would it sound like? Give us a little preview. If he's having sex with Sharon Stone in On the Moon.
I think he did it earlier in this podcast.
I did. It's all one thing. I can't do it. I feel like I'm overusing my one trick. People are going to get tired of it. But Joyce, she's supposed to be fucking worrying about her son, right? And she's not the only shitty parents here. But Dominic, is he playing down by the fucking railroad tracks? Where is Joyce? It looks like he set up like a hobo camp. There's like 2 car seats. There's a bunch of junk. He's making lasers. The mother doesn't know this place even exists. Then Sylvester's mom, it's the raffle for the school. Hey, I'm going to give a bike and a pony. Who the fuck is going to buy a pony raffle ticket? Who can take care of it? These parents are so far out there. Half the parents think he's gay, and the other parents, they're only thinking about whether or not they can fuck Kimble. So the parents in this school, they might have the money to set up a nice class, but they're not the most observant good parents.
I think we're just really missing the reality of Astoria, Oregon. Like, this is just life in Astoria. They've got ponies for raffle, and kids are building, laser forts in their yards with old chairs. You guys, did you grow up with money? Because my friends and I had little play places like this, growing up in Tempe, Arizona. Just like we'd find junk off the railroad tracks and like kind of make our own little hideouts.
Yes, but they weren't 12 feet from my house. And my mother couldn't have found them. Joyce could look out her window and see the hobo camp. We used to go to where the junk was and then build a base and set it up. Somehow, Dominic made his way to an abandoned car, took out the ratchet, undid the seats, dragged them back to his house, and Joyce was oblivious.
It's because it's the single parent capital of America, Big D. All the parents are, they're strapped for time. They can't pay attention to the kids.
More so than awful parenting, snaggle teeth, and Nazi teaching techniques, I think the worst thing about Kindergarten Cop is the rise of other kid cop movies around this time. There was Cop and a Half where Burt Reynolds tried to cash in on it. There was Kid Cop. There was Good Cop and Bad Kid. They even made a sequel to this one in like the mid 2000s with Dolph Lundgren. Called Kindergarten Cop 2, obviously, but I think there was also one. It was like that same thing when Dogs and Cops were a thing, where like Turner and Hooch gave rise to that one with Jim Belushi. It's just there was this weird time in Hollywood where people complain about there being an overabundance of superhero movies. Thank God there's not like an overabundance of cop and kid movies or rambunctious kids that are orphans and are adopted by a parenting couple that doesn't know what to do with it. But in the end, they find their love for each other.
Yeah, I was shocked on any streaming service when I was looking up Kindergarten Cop and just like all the other kid cop movies that came up and the permutations thereof. It was quite shocking. I didn't know this was even a thing until we did this podcast. And I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of movies I never want to watch.
Mm-hmm. Well, in California, the case holding Crisp in jail is closed after the witness dies from using tainted cocaine provided by Crisp's mother, Eleanor. He is released from prison and immediately travels to Astoria with Eleanor to search for Cullen Jr. When Kimble learns that Crisp has been released, he confronts Rachel about her identity, saying he can protect her if she cooperates.
Every great movie has a great villain. And I think back to things like, Hans Gruber in Die Hard. Like that's a great villain. Or basically any character Christoph Waltz has ever played. And I feel like in this movie, the Crisps are supposed to be interesting. Like the film's writers want us to get a really creepy or strange sense from Cullen Crisp and his mother. And they're doing that by like making them eccentric and kind of weird and all the tropes of a mother-son relationship when it's gone awry, right? Like she's a little overprotective. He is, maybe a bit sadistic, but it all falls flat. I don't know if he's supposed to be an imbecile. Is she supposed to be crazy? Like, what the fuck is the story here? Could you guys make sense of this relationship?
No, I wanted to see Crisp's operation. Show him as a tough guy. Show like when they say she stole $3 million, I'm like, okay, maybe. Show that he's got some henchmen. He's the only drug kingpin who walks around with his mom all day. What's going on there? I need to see that. And that weird relationship with the mom, fine, I get it. You needed to introduce her. That's why his Cullen Jr. is so important. And I got to respect her dedication. I know for a fact, I told you, if I came home with a body in the trunk and said, Vanessa, get the shovels, we got to go bury this, she's calling the police on me. I don't know what my mother would say, but I don't know if my mother would kill someone for me wantonly. So I'm going to ask her over Thanksgiving. But would either of you two, Gene, an Iranian mother, I don't know why, it's probably stereotypical. I picture she'd be more down with, having somebody killed to protect you. Would she do that?
Not just an Iranian mother, but a Kurdish Iranian mother. She would tear a man's throat out with her bare hands to protect me. She would go Swayze in Roadhouse for me. I have no doubt about it. If I showed up with a dead body, my mom would be like, well, we're getting out of the country and, let's go. She probably has a bug out bag ready. She's expecting that from me.
It seemed like Rachel was ready for this moment. You think she had a bug out bag as well?
Fuck no. Rachel's an idiot. She finds out that her cover's blown. Her killer ex-husband is on his way. And what does she do? She goes home and puts Dominic to bed and starts packing suitcases, like comically large suitcases. I seriously thought Rachel, when she got in that sweet ass Geo Tracker at the festival, was just gonna hit the road and never look back. That's what I'm fucking doing. Instead, she goes back to school. And then they don't even alert the staff that what this guy looks like. They're just like, it's cool. Let's just go back to business as usual.
No, and then the following night, she doesn't just put him to bed. She loses track of him again as he wanders off to the hobo camp and then climbs up the damn antenna to stick tinfoil in those coils. I thought he was going to get electrocuted.
This is why I don't want kids. Because inevitably my dumb kid would go climbing on some fucking antenna to put aluminum foil because he claims they're lasers. He's going to keep the bad guys away. This is why you have to be brutally honest with children. You have to tell them, listen, you're not going to be special. You're probably going to be, mediocre most of your life. You're not going to be what you want when you grow up. It doesn't happen. Your bank account will never be more than $10,000. It's just how it is. Like, this is life. If you're brutally honest with children and you set the right expectations, they're not going to go climb some crazy tower, as soon as they leave their hobo camp. But does anyone, do you guys ever, when you watch dumb movies, are you like me where you have to keep yourself entertained? With this one, I made myself believe that Dominic Jr., this little fucking kid, was so disturbed by the events that happened in his childhood that he became Chip Douglas in The Cable Guy. Because there was this whole weird flashback that was living in my mind. And maybe that's why Chip Douglas was so fascinated with the cable satellite dish in The Cable Guy. And he created this whole fake persona because he didn't really have a good childhood growing up.
Roger, I think the chasm between you and me is that you have an incredibly active imagination and I have an incredibly long attention span. Yeah. So we're never going to see movies the same way. And I think that's what makes this podcast great. And speaking of crushing kids' dreams, I'm just waiting for the day that you have a kid with a hit podcast with 40 or 50,000 listeners. And you just show up and you're like, you and your 3 idiot friends just getting on the microphone being idiots. I can't believe anybody pays for this shit. It's terrible.
Yeah, Roger Jr., you suck. Daddy, why are you saying that to me?
Now go put on your Thomas Jefferson costume.
Yeah, I can't. Who's going to pay for that therapy?
Oh my God. That's the only reason I want kids. Well, Crisp starts a fire in the library as a distraction to kidnap Cullen Jr. and uses him as a hostage when Kimble arrives. Kimble's ferret bites Crisp in the neck, allowing Cullen Jr. to escape. Crisp shoots Kimble in the leg before Kimble fatally shoots Crisp. Outside, Eleanor injures O'Hara with her car before going inside and discovering Crisp dead. She wounds Kimble in the shoulder, but an enraged O'Hara appears and vengefully attacks and beats her unconscious with a baseball bat. This is a family-friendly movie.
It's a comedy.
They're comedically bad cops, for sure. So they know there's a killer on the loose, and he's coming for his kid. You know he's coming for one specific kid. You know the kid's name. You have a personal relationship with the kid. On that day, a fire mysteriously starts in the school. There's chaos. There are 2 police officers already on site in the classroom where the kid is. And what do? They leave Dominic alone. The one fucking kid you know they're coming for. Hey, Dominic, grab the ferret and start running around in the hallway.
For some reason, he turns into hall monitor. There's 2 or 3 kids falling down, and he's got to go back and pick them up. Dominic, stay close. Go pick Dominic up. Come on. His mother, who you now have a relationship with, she trusted you. If she knew, she'd probably be better off keeping that kid with Crisp. At least the kid would be safe.
Well, this is where I'm so glad that the fire drills came back into play because they really hyped up, the principal's obsession with getting the fire drill right. And I was like, oh, well, I know this is going to come back somewhere in the movie. And we got the payoff. We got the payoff where all the hard work and drilling, but then at the same time, there's chaos in the halls. There's chaos. Now, part of me was like, well, if they were so regimented, they would already be out the door, right? So all of this is, safety theater. But it also made me long for the times of where a fire drill was the worst thing you could prep for. Well, outside of nuclear fallout. Nowadays, these kids do like active shooter drills. Like, Big D, are you ready to send Emma off to kindergarten and have her do not fire drills, but active shooter drills?
You know, what the fuck, what choice do I have? It's not like I'm like, boo-hoo, let's do it. No, you got no choice. You got to prep them up. But you saying that these fire drills work? Bullshit. I'll tell you, in my vast experience working with children in day camp, you have to get them to pair up. They have to get a buddy. It's easier to manage a large group when there's two of them, because when one's alone, you can say, where's your partner, right? They've been training at the drill. Shit goes out the window. Kids are everywhere, but somehow they remember that class that they had just gotten on what to do with strangers. Stranger. There could be pointed at every fireman. Stranger, policeman, stranger. I don't think they had the discipline. And again, Kimble, he is a shitty cop. It's like he's trying to get Dominic killed.
They wouldn't point at the firemen because they have hats.
That is true. But what did you guys think of that ridiculous twist? Like you say, talk about the fire drill coming back in. The Vampire Ferret? Out of nowhere, this has been a class mascot, right? For like what, over a week? All the kids are up there, like they're doing the things you should never do with an animal. Don't put your hands close to the eyes. Don't like get it right up against you. Don't get a bunch of hands on it. Sometime out of the blue now, this thing turns into like a wild animal and goes right for his jugular.
So this speaks again to what Roger's talking about of the absurd foreshadowing in this movie. Like you could call this end scene from a mile away. Like, let's see what things are going to happen here. Well, okay. The mom is super protective of the son, so she's probably going to attack Kimble. We got that one. The ferret, they say a million times, he would never bite anybody.
Right.
He's probably going to bite somebody. The fire drill, is going to come into play. They keep showing the car and then like, oh, look, the car like runs over O'Hara. And O'Hara serves no purpose in this fucking movie other than coming up and hitting Eleanor with the baseball bat. Speaking of which, talking about, again, this being a kid's movie, they toned that shit down too, because she had an opportunity to brain that woman. And what does she do? She hits her arms and her belly. Mm-hmm. That is not how you use a bat, folks.
And another thing with the 90s, right? Just because you play happy end of the movie music, that doesn't make it a happy ending. Dominic's going to need therapy. This shit went real dark. Okay, we had the first twist where we find out about the abuse of what was his name? Zach. Zach's getting abused, right? So now we have another quick turn. So Dominic's abducted. His dad slaps him in the face. Mm-hmm. He then witnesses his dad get shot and his grandmother shoot Kimble. And then he sees the partner beat his grandmother to the ground, right? Oh, and the school, arson. Sorry, the school was on fire at this time. This is not a happy ending. Dominic is going to be traumatized for years.
Also, the kids call out right in front of him that his mom and Kimble are going to do it. Gonna fuck with him even worse. I don't ever want to be in a room where 30 other kids are like, your mom's going to do it with that man. Jeez.
Well, Eleanor is arrested and the unconscious Kimble is hospitalized with O'Hara, both making a full recovery. She returns to the police force in Los Angeles while he decides to retire, staying in Astoria to become a kindergarten teacher at the school full-time. Rachel joins him and kisses him while everyone cheers. End movie.
Okay, so now let's get another tone jump back the other way, right?
Right.
So now we've got that dark scene, the beating with the bat, Crisp is dead, the shooting. Hey, what do we got to do? Let's get some hijinks. Henry shows up at the fucking hospital, and it's just slapstick. He's got the boxes. He almost drops them. He grabs the rope. Kimble's leg swings up, and it's almost Benny Hill music. What were they trying to do? I know you want to end on a positive note, but this is like from a different movie.
No, that's exactly what they were trying to do. They were saying, let's lighten this movie the fuck up. And what do we do? It's like a heavy-handed doctor who's like writing a prescription. It's like, okay, we got to do like a little slapstick, a happy ending. Well, let's throw a wedding in there. Why not?
The problem that I have with this movie is, what was the motivation of Cullen? Why does he want his kid back so much? Is it because of his unhealthy relationship with his mother that he has to then pass down that same symbiotic relationship where I can't live without the other, otherwise I'll wither away? There's no indication that he tries to be a good father other than he steals the other guy's toy from the toy store. I don't understand why he's a villain. Like, he could be a drug lord, but then there's no money. Why is he so obsessed with the kid? It doesn't make any sense.
It's because he was raised by a mother who obsessed over him.
Right.
And she was a helicopter mother who just, was obsessed with him. I mean, she bought a rectal thermometer to use on this kid. You want to add another level of trauma? Grandma, this old woman's going to come stick a thermometer in your ass because it's flu season, right? That's why he's going after him. He's obsessed because that's how he was raised. But when you read this last block, Eleanor is arrested and the unconscious Kimble's in the hospital and makes a full recovery. She returns to LA. He stays. Where did that come from? What the fuck happened? Did we get any of that on screen? I didn't know that he retired and became a teacher. He went back in the classroom and the other teacher's back. Did they show any of this on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I took it that way. He goes back in the classroom and the principal's like, oh, it's all yours now. But I had the question. I was like, yeah, what happened to the old teacher? Did they just fire her ass? And also, like, during this entire chaos at the school, where the fuck are the parents? Like, maybe the 90s were just different, but if there was a shooting at a school today, or even the rumor of a shooting, every parent in like 2 counties is swarming the campus. My sister pulls her kids out of school if somebody like nearby says, I saw a homeless guy today. Oh shit, get the kids out of school. It's a disaster. There are no parents to be seen in this movie.
Well, there's not even a parent-teacher conference after Mr. Kimble assaults one of the parents. The 2 moms with the strollers clearly saw it. You don't think they're picking up the phone and be like, hey, that big, bulky, juicy gay guy, the one who's teaching kindergarten, I saw him just punch Zach's dad. That would have gone around the town of Astoria.
Well, they all wanted to sleep with him. That's why they don't want him fired. And you see the teacher there. To your point, Gene, I guess they just fired her right afterwards. 25 years, and that's it. That's what you get. Giant Austrian comes in.
And thank God that Kimble doesn't even have a teaching degree.
Right.
Well, is he qualified now to become the teacher? Are they going to forge certification? Is this a My Cousin Vinny situation?
Exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen. Is that it?
Woo.
Is that it?
Wow. What else can you say?
All right. Well, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meters and give you our wipe score. If you've never listened to the podcast before, 0 wipes is a perfect movie. 5 wipes is a terrible movie. We'll start with you, Gene. How many wipes do you give a Kindergarten Cop?
Well, Raj, when we started this podcast, I thought we'd have the chance to shit all over Arnold Schwarzenegger's catalog of over-the-top action movies with comically bad delivery of dialogue. And instead, Schwarzenegger's defied the odds in every film we've covered. Commando, Last Action Hero, Conan the Barbarian, Terminator, even Jingle All the Way. He managed to save all those movies. But this movie breaks that streak. It's too violent to be a kid's movie, but too silly to be an action movie. It's too folksy to be satire, but too forced to be genuine. Arnold is doing everything he can. He is digging deep to save this movie. And the kids in it aren't bad either, but the writing cannot be overcome. It swerves all over the place, doesn't know what it wants to be. You can't get a solid tone on it. And I just don't know how to read it. So for me, this is a below average movie, not a total shitstorm. It's 3.5 wipes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Gene. The tone shifts in this movie were tough to experience. I found myself bored. It was unfortunately not the movie I remember. If you either made it more cartoonish, the violence, it seems as if they just tried to play it straight in some aspects of the movie. It was a mess of a movie. I know people have fond memories of this movie, but go back. It's the reason we do the podcast. It's to determine whether or not the movies we loved when growing up were really that good. This one, unfortunately, isn't that good. And I apologize because it's a commissioned movie, and I want you to like this review and not hate us and give us 1-star reviews on iTunes, but I got to agree with Gene. It's a below average movie. I think it's worse than Gene's rating. I'm going to give it a 4 wiper. So that leaves you, Dick. What wipe score do you give Kindergarten Cop?
So I think I'm going to be a little more gentle than you guys were, but this was like a soft opening, right? This was like a dry run. You could tell Arnold didn't have it down yet. He hadn't figured out his comic timing. He didn't quite know, the things that he later on make him lovable in Last Action Hero and Junior and Jingle All the Way. He's gotten the comedic timing down. He understands what's funny. Here, His interactions with the kids, fantastic. That is the heart of the movie. Everybody remembers that, but the kids are the stars. And Arnold's got a couple of those moments where he snaps, where you're like, shit, I can see he's catching lightning in a bottle. But then you pair that with Ivan Reitman's score. It is saccharine sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It goes anytime that Joyce and Kimble are together. It's like da na 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 na. It's like a sitcom. It's pretty bad, and it's sad because it could have been good. The tone is absolutely all over the place, and just thankfully Arnold got it down. He got it together in the future. But for this one, man, this if an average is 2.5, this is definitely worse. So I think I'm being generous with a 3. And if you think we're wrong, go back and try to watch it. And when you get to the pubic beard in the first 5 minutes, you're gonna be like, yep, this wasn't ready for publishing.
Well, if we were to add up 3.5, 4, and 3 wipes and then divide by 3, Gene, you're gonna have to double, triple check your math. How many wipes does this movie ultimately receive?
Well, this is pretty simple math because there's a 3 and a 4 and a 3.5, meaning that the average would be 3.5 wipes for Kindergarten Cop.
So Big D, if we were to take 3.5 and put that on the shelf of the pantheon of Shat, of all the movies that we've done here, where does that rank Kindergarten Cop?
So this is movie 122, and with a 3.5 wipe score, this ties it in the 94 spot with A Nightmare on Elm Street and Dune. It is well towards the bottom. And how the fuck is Jingle All the Way at 98? We give that 3.67.
Jingle All the Way is a terrible movie.
Yeah, at least you're consistent. You gave that a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Chunk.
It's really bad.
Fun fact, the principal in this movie was in Dune as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for commissioning this movie, Stephanie. We hope you enjoyed our Shatty review. Now it's time of the podcast where we do our shout outs and tell you the next movie that we'll be reviewing. Gene, what's a shout out?
Raj, a shout out is our way of saying thank you for visiting our website, shatthemovies.com, where you can see all the upcoming movies and vote for your choices in upcoming categories. If you go to shatthemovies.com, you'll find a little slide out that says you can get a shout out. Put your name in there and we will read your name on the podcast as a thank you. This week's shout outs go to Vince from Cleveland, Stephen Mountain, Poops McGilligutty, Allie the Cappy, Roger Killjoy, Jose V, Biggest Mickus, Eric, Hendrick Bendrick Frendrick, Dodger Dan, and Danny.
Big D, what movie is commissioned for next week?
Well, next week, I got to first give an apology to Jim from London. We are a small operation. I know we might sound good and people think we're this, this big well-oiled machine of a podcast. If you guys could see what was behind the curtain, it's not pretty sometimes. We're a small operation. We wear lots of hats. So Jim, earlier in the year, he had written in saying he wanted to commission a movie. I think we were doing still Game of Thrones at that point. I didn't see that he actually did commission it. So there was some confusion. So he finally wrote in this week and was like, hey, when's my movie going to get scheduled? And I said, did you actually donate? Oops, my bad, Jim. But luckily we're only about 2 weeks late. So I appreciate you being patient with us and again, supporting the podcast. And Jim from London has commissioned a movie, which is about a man tired of crime overrunning the streets of Boston. Irish Catholic twins, brothers Connors, played by Sean Patrick Flanley, and Murphy Norman Reedus, are inspired by their faith to cleanse their hometown of evil with their own brand of zealous vigilante justice. As they hunt down and kill one notorious gangster after another, they become controversial folk heroes in the community. But Paul Smecker, played by William Dafoe, an eccentric FBI agent, is fast closing in on their blood-soaked trail. This again was commissioned by Jim from London. It was released in January of 1999, written, directed by Troy Duffy. And I have no idea. I thought this movie was in London. I've never seen it.
No, it's in Boston.
Yeah. It's that similar. Because it came out alongside British films like Snatch and Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, and it was supposed to be the next big thing, but the American version of it. That's why people sometimes get it mistaken for different location. But yeah, the whole history of this movie is fucking bonkers and just a testament for how cocaine can make people do some very strange things. So yeah, looking forward to seeing this movie again. Haven't seen it in a while.
This will be my first time.
All right. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just search for the handle at Shat The Movies. Our Facebook is shatthemovies.com. Our Facebook link is at shatthemovies.com. You can also email us your suggestions for upcoming movie categories at hosts with an S at shatthemovies.com. You can support the podcast multiple ways via PayPal, Venmo, or shopping on Amazon at our affiliate link. Just go to shatthemovies.com. You can find all of our links under the support tab. You can also complete a survey there that will help us get advertisers so that eventually we know the commission well will dry up. So we would love to keep the lights on here. So do that.
Way to keep it positive, Raj. I love it.
You know,
you're just Mr. Optimistic.
This is how I'm going to talk to my child. We're again, we're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. If you stop by iTunes, be sure to leave a 5-star review. That does help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and True Detective. You can find all the information on that website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene, boys have a penis, girls have a vagina, lions, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for the following commissioned review. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, good night, and good luck.
On the streets of Boston.
This was no gangland assassination. It was way too sloppy. Something went wrong here.
An FBI agent is on a case.
All the lowlifes in the quiet city of Boston start dropping dead, and you think it's unrelated.
They're all bad guys. Now they're all dead bad guys.
The victims are the mob.
What we have here, gentlemen, is the beginning of the first international mob war.
And the hitmen think they're on a mission from God.
Anybody you think is evil, don't you think that's a little weird, a little psycho?
Sort of like 7-Eleven. We're not always doing business, but we're always open.
That is nice and cozy.
There was 2 shooters.
Fan-freaking-tastic.
This guy's very sharp. He hasn't figured us out yet, he will.
All we know is what we found out from the neighbors. And the general consensus is they're angels.
Amen.
In a place where the violent have the power.
Destroy all that which is evil, so that which is good may flourish.
One lawman doesn't know whether to catch the killers.
I believe what they do is necessary.
Or join them.
All of the things I wish I could do, these guys are doing.
With every breath, we shall hunt them down. Each day, we